What up, though, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Antony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey on our usual Wednesday night slot. Yes, it is the college football podcast, Kiss from a Rose Bowl. Ryan, we are 1 week away from the beginning of the path to the draft. Two championship games remain. Bowl season is over. The Nattie semis have been played. Nearly time for the most important part of the year in college football.
Yeah, I'm all balled out. I'm I'm kind of glad the football season's about to end because I'm exhausted. My body is running on fumes from the Lions and college football. Too many late nights. So yeah, like say a couple more weeks, and then yeah, my favorite part is looking at the draft. Like say we come to this point of watch all the games, but really, I just want to look at the players.
Exactly. Like all the focus through the season is on the teams, what they're doing, maybe a little bit on what the players are doing, but this is where we get to focus on what really matters going forward. So today we are going to finish off the bowl reviews. Obviously, we weren't here last week. We had a little bit of a Christmas break. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of you who are listening in. So we've got a few bowl games to go through. We're going to see who won, some of the players who showed out. Then we're going to talk about the college football playoff semi-finals. Two very intriguing fixtures just played this weekend. And then we're going to take a look ahead to the last two games of the college football season, the FCS championship game and the FBS championship game as well. Before we do, let's just get all that housekeeping stuff out the way. So Rural Lines UK Discord, if you want in, let us know. We will send you a link for that. Main podcast is back tomorrow. We will be talking Minnesota Vikings preview. It is the last game of the Detroit Lions season before they head into the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. So come join us for that's going to be good fun. Don't forget to like and sub to everything, Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff. Don't forget about Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's pet project to bring together the best in Lions content creators on YouTube. And don't forget, we are a Twitch affiliate, monetized on YouTube, and we have a tip jar. So if you want to help us that way, absolutely great. If not, we just love having you all in the building. And don't forget, we have a feedback form as well. So any suggestions you have for the show, anything you want us to talk about like that, just fill that in, send it to us. We will take it on board. Right. Let's dive down straight into things. And before we go into the bowl review season, just want to give you all an update on what we're going to be doing here on the College Football Pod in the coming weeks. Because as I said, once these two games are done this weekend, we head on the path to the draft, which winds all the way through to Detroit at the end of April. So the best part of 3 and a bit months to go. So what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, the first stop on the path to the draft, of course, the All-Star games where players get to go and work out in front of scouts in a game scenario, most over a week period. And we're going to be breaking down rosters, looking at players that we like, all that good stuff as we usually do. So the first of those bowl games is on January the 13th. It is the Hula Bowl. That does take place over the week. So next week, we're going to be taking a look at the Hula Bowl roster, the players we like on there, guys to watch out for, you know, all those sort of bits, as well as talking about the Nattie as well, which is going on this weekend. Then at the start of February, you have the East-West Shrine Bowl starts on February the 1st, the Senior Bowl on February the 3rd. So throughout the rest of January, when the rosters are finalized, we will be breaking down the East-West Shrine Bowl first and then the Senior Bowl, again, going through all the players, what they bring to the table, who we're looking forward to seeing, who to watch out for, all that good stuff. It's great. And then, of course, the last of the games, the HBCU Legacy Bowl, which takes place in late February. Hoping that we can get Gerald back on the show again. We're going to be doing our small schools episodes with him, the HBCU Legacy Bowl episode. So we'll be doing that afterwards. But I don't know about you, Ray. You said obviously the great thing is about getting to analyze the players and that. The All-Star game season is really fun because there's a lot of players that you already know about. There's a lot of players you bring to your attention. This is where you really dig into the meat of the bones, isn't it, in draft season? I love the All-Star games.
I do, and what's weird is the games usually are terrible. You don't watch the games because the games are pointless. They're rotating guys in and out every play. There's no continuity. There's no play to each other. But the practices and the drills, like say proper, like I say, got a lot of coaches, like I say, got a lot of NFL experience, a lot of pros, like I say, a lot of collection of guys that have never worked together. And individual drills, you can watch all the highlights online on Twitter, and just straight up 1v1s. I want to see defensive backs, I want to see receivers, I want to see quarterbacks, I want to see O-line, and I want to see defensive tackles. And you just watch them like clash, just steel versus iron. And that is really where your draft stock, it rises or it falls, because in the game you may see minimal touches, or it might be a blowout to one side, but it just doesn't tell the story. Like I say, you can have a great game, or you can have a terrible practice, vice versa. Like I say, you could have a terrible game, but you've dominated in practice, and people will recognise that. That will go a long way. So yeah, these are really the first steps before on the path to the combine. Because a lot of these players won't get invited to the combine. This is their combine.
Yeah, exactly. Before combine season, pro day season, this is really one of the biggest stage a lot of these guys get. And this is where you start to see the FCS prospects now that they sort of come up against the FBS guys. They get to show themselves out a little more. You will always hear names coming up from the smaller schools at this point who show out at these events. So that is basically going to be the next 5 or 6 weeks with us here, going through all those all-star games, previewing them, reviewing them. So going to be a lot of good fun there. But like I said, for today, we are going to be reviewing bowl season, closing that out, and the college football playoff semi-finals. So let's just dive straight back down into the ball games. There are a lot to go through, so we're just going to have a little brief chat about them all, and then, not spend too much time, and then move on forward. So we ended up, when we did our last show, on the 21st of December, and the first one we have this evening was the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl that took place between USF, that is the University of South Florida, and Syracuse. This is Group of 5 on Power 5, and the Group of 5 team, South Florida, absolutely blew out their Power 5 opposition. This one ended 45-0 to South Florida. And if I could bear with, this is USF's first bowl win since 2017. So this is the first year of Alex Golesh. We've talked a lot about him on this pod. Been really good. He took over a team that went 1-11 last year. This year, he's got them to 7-6 when all is said and done with a bowl win. And they dominated from start to finish. Special teams, they had a field goal block return touchdown. They had a 61-yard fumble return touchdown. Byron Brown, the quarterback, clean game from him. 220-odd yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Sean Aitkins, the running back, 2 rushing touchdowns. And they just went crazy. The defense, 10 tackles for loss, 3 against the pass, 7 against the rush, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. There were 5 fumbles from Syracuse altogether, 2 of which were lost, 3 of which they recovered, but turnover margin was absolutely crazy. But this has been, for USF, Ryan, I mean, a great season that many might not have seen coming. A 1-11 team getting its ass handed to them. First year head coach, first time he's done it. He's the Russian-born guy. He's come in, he's revitalized this team, and yes, Syracuse were a little short-handed in this. They've got a new coach here, but pure domination from a team that looks like it's trending upwards going into 2024.
Yeah, there's been a few very one-sided ball games, and I called this one wrong. I did not say this at all. Syracuse, yeah, they didn't want to be there, and it kind of showed. They looked like the guys that went there just kind of couldn't be bothered. And I felt like almost a bit disrespectful to USF, like you say, who have, like you say, had a stellar year under a first-time head coach, huge player turnover. And this year, even in their losses, like I said, loss against Bama, have really done themselves proud. And it's a project that it's probably the biggest turnaround, like I say, +6 wins. I'd say that's probably, without looking, that would be one of the biggest margin improvements on last year. And they go into 2024 looking upwards. But Syracuse, they're looking backwards. New head coach, like I said, good recruitments, but they were stinky this year. They stunk the gaff up. And they're not going to get any better anytime soon, I don't think. I know they got a comment, but they're 2 programs next year that might be trending in different directions. Yeah, so the Bulls deserve a lot of credit for this one. I did not see that coming whatsoever.
No, USF, I think, are going to be a problem in the American. Syracuse, you're right. Fran Brown coming in from Georgia DB's coaching. He's going to take this team over. He's got his quarterback, but he's got a big job on there. And, these bowl games, if anything, they're about as much a showcase in the future. And when your team's getting blown out 45-0 by a group of 5 teams, it's like, uh-oh, maybe the future ain't so bright for some of these guys. But not taking away anything USF did. Wonderful for them. Congratulations. Let us move it on swiftly. 22nd of December, the Friday, we had the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl taking place between the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the UCF Knights. Georgia Tech winning this 30-17. Georgia Tech's first bowl win since 2016. And again, this is another first-year head coach, Brent Key. He's the guy there. He took over sort of towards the end of last year, but this is his first full season. He's improved the team from 5-7 overall last year to 7-6 this year with a bowl win, which may not sound like much, but Georgia Tech haven't been the greatest team as of late. So 7 wins and a bowl victory represents a good season for them. They've had their first 1,000-yard runner since 2017 in Jamal Hines. And for them, a really good game from the ball. So Haynes King didn't really have to do much to quarterback in this one. He threw for 87 yards, a touchdown and an interception. But Georgia Tech do what Georgia Tech do best. 284 yards of offense on the ground on 53 rushing attempts. They had 53 rushes, 13 passes. Chewed up the clock on this one. Jamal Hines got his 128 yards to break the 1,000-yard barrier on there. There were plays on defense, on offense. UCF started off really well. They went 14-0 up, and then they went 17-3 up with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. And then they didn't score a goal for the rest. They didn't score a point, goal for the rest of the game. 27 unanswered by Georgia Tech throughout the end of the first half and the entirety of the second. This is, again, contrasting teams here, right? For Georgia Tech, again, first-year head coach, rebuilding the program. They've landed on a good quarterback in Haynes King, who surprised a lot of people by their trending upwards. But UCF, conversely, have finished 6-7. Not been the greatest debut in the Big 12 for them. They've landed KJ Jefferson for next year, which is a big get for them, but a very disappointing season for them. But for Georgia Tech, reason for optimism going forward in the Atlantic.
Yeah, Georgia Tech have had they've stacked bad years in recent memories. They hit rock bottom at one point. Like I say, they were purely just a team that we just want to run the ball. They were just incapable of passing before, like I say, bringing in Key, getting Haynes King. This year, they've thrown the ball and been a much more balanced offense. Even in the losses, they have looked like a more credible outfit. On the opposite side, UCF, they've come close to huge upsets. They've scored loads of points. They had like the 5th best rushing offense, like say, like a football point. But their defense, it was, shaky being an understatement. Like I said, they've been just so topsy-turvy. And swapping quarterbacks as well, John Rice Plumlee, like I said, other guys. It's kind of been a muddle. And we saw it in this game. We saw mistakes. We saw turnovers. We saw like an incomplete performance. And yeah, not a good year in the Big 12 to start them off. Hopefully things get better next year. But yeah, the right team won the game. And I've got optimism for the Yellow Jackets' hope. Like I say, the ACC, it's not that strong. Like I say, and obviously in their rivalry, they've been pasted for many a year. But I'd like to think that they can kind of close the gap in the state of Georgia. Like I say, not to get there, but their program now is going in the right direction. And they will recruit better. I say I think they're going to be a decent outfit next year. UCF, it's impossible to say. Like I said, the Big 12 right now, for me, with who they're adding, will be the most competitive Power 5 conference next year. And that does not work in their favour because they struggled this year. And I don't see them turning it around in just a year. I like KJ Jefferson. He had his struggles this year, I'd say, but they also had a stinky offensive coordinator. But let's see what they can do with him. It's an experienced quarterback. It's a good pickup. Let's see if they can turn their fortunes around next year. 2 teams definitely to watch next year. Like I say, but we'll see what for.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if UCF can keep that offense going, like KJ is, because they work with a dual threat quarterback. Obviously, Plumlee runs the ball all the time. We've always known him as more of a running quarterback who can throw it. KJ, we know, runs the ball a lot, and he's a better passer. So they've got an upgrade. So if he slides seamlessly into the system and they carry on putting the yards they do, it'll be one of the most potent offenses in the country. But can they play complementary ball on both sides? That is the question. But well done, Georgia Tech, great win for them there. Moving on to the 23rd of December, few games in on this one. The Birmingham Bowl between the Duke Blue Devils and the Troy Trojans. Finished Duke 17, Troy 10. We did all pick Troy for this one in the pick watch, but you know, we know what to expect from a Troy game now, right? The defense obviously is great. And even in these circumstances against Power 5 opposition, you know, 9 tackles for loss, 5 in the pass, 4 in the rush, couple of sacks. They had an interception. They forced a fumble. They kept Duke down to 17 points. Now, Duke have had a lot of turnover there. Their new quarterback, Grayson Loftus, was in. He was 19 of 29, 183 yards, no touchdowns, but he did throw a pick on there. The scores were infrequent, just one for each team. The rest was all field goals. And very annoyingly, given what happened with the Lions this weekend, Troy had a big man touchdown from the left tackle, Derek Graham. He had it rushed it from 2 yards out. So God knows what package they put together for him. But attritional defensive warfare here. I don't think Troy are going to mind losing the ball game. They've won the Sun Belt 2 years in a row. Obviously, changes are coming for them. Their quarterback's off this year. Kamani Vidal's probably going to the draft. It's been a good year for them regardless. For Duke, I mean, a lot of changes coming there. They've lost so much of that team there. But again, you start to see the future for them in these ball games. A lot of the new players coming forward and they win the ball game. They look good. The offense is rusty, but the defense is strong. Something to build with for Manny Diaz going forward.
For me, Troy are the winners, the real winners out of this game. Like I said, I know Duke, like you say, yeah, let's be honest, they were going into that game and they had no real idea what they were going to put or with who. And the Trojans, yeah, fair credit to them. They did their bit. They stopped them however they could. And they did a really good job. Like I say, their defense is credible and it can slow down Power 5 offenses. In the end, it was their offense that we know has always been a bit stop-start. It's relying on a good defense. They just didn't have enough to muster. Duke, yeah, it's Manny Diaz has got one of the biggest jobs on his hand in the Power 5. Like I said, it's a team that, again, has been stripped bare. Like I say, and I don't really like the hire, Manny Diaz, I'm totally honest. But yeah, they got the win. Something to feel good about themselves. But I think it kind of it's going to paper over the cracks. Next year is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. Like I said, they're going back to square one from like square four. And that's not their fault. Like I say, they're just hurt by their own success. Had a great year, so they got cleaned house. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what both teams can do next year. I'd like to think Duke can put together a roster that can be competitive, and Troy will, yeah, they want to defend their title again. But yeah, this was it was a game for the purists.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The sickos, the defense there, but I'd say both teams win in this one. Troy still had a great year. Duke get to end it with a bowl win. Great there for them. Next one is the Camellia Bowl. Now this was a really interesting affair. Northern Illinois, the Huskies against Arkansas State, the Red Wolves. Northern Illinois coming out on top of this one, 21-19, which you called, Ryan. I didn't, but I watched this, was a very frisky, fired up affair. There was a bust out between the teams. They jawed off with one another before kickoff and a big fight nearly broke out. It's the first meeting of these two teams actually since 2012, which also happened to be the last year that Northern Illinois won a bowl game before this one. So this is their first bowl win in 11 years. It's also the first career bowl win for the Northern Illinois head coach, Thomas Hammock, which will be a big release for him because his seat's under a lot of pressure at the minute. Game of two halves. There were 500 yards of offense and 34 points scored combined in the first half, which is a Camellia Bowl record. In the second half, there was just 270 yards and 6 points combined between the teams. And the points came in the last 90 seconds as Arkansas State missed the 2-point conversion to level the game. But the big theme of this one, Thomas Hammock brought his inner Dan Campbell out for this one. So the Huskies went for 2 points on their opening drive touchdown, which failed. So very first drive of the game, they went for 2 points. That failed. After their second touchdown near the end of the first quarter, they attempted an onside kick, which they actually nearly recovered, but one of their players touched the ball a yard too early because it had completely fooled Arkansas State, but he touched it too early. They got penalized. Then just 6 minutes into the second quarter, when they were lined up for a field goal, they executed one of the most beautiful fake field goals I've ever seen. The placeholder received the ball. He just sort of tossed it up in the air. The kicker, Cannon Woodill, was running past full speed. That dude's got some pace. I want to see what his 40 speed is, but he outpaced everybody on the Arkansas State team, took it for a 32-yard touchdown, and they went for 2 points again, which they converted this time, which ended up winning them the game. And all these brave maneuvers meant that Northern Illinois had the ball for 40 minutes in this game, but they only won by 2 points, which shows just how hard Arkansas State fought to keep it so close. But ultimately, like I said, 90 seconds left, they score a touchdown, they go for the 2-point to level it up, they fail, they don't get the ball back. But this was actually quite a fun game here, right? For Northern Illinois, much overdue time for a ball win for them. But for an Arkansas State team that was dead, buried, out of it after the first few weeks of the season, the comeback they've mounted to be able to make a ball game first and then to withstand the siege of offense in this and only just come away with a loss. Again, it feels like kind of both teams win here.
Yeah, odd game, let's say, because NIU, I watched the highlights. Rocky Lombardi didn't play that well. The Huskies didn't play very well. Centered the ball for most of the game. They really were very frivolous and they wasted a lot of it. And they let Arkansas State off the hook time and time again. And their defense, like I say, was playing the majority of the game. They did themselves like a ton of credit, to be fair, to the Red Wolves defense. They were severely tested for 3/4 of that game, and they stood tough. In the red zone, on third and fourth downs, they just continued to frustrate them. And it was their offense that when it got the ball, it just struggled to capitalize until the very end when it could have gone overtime. But yeah, I watched the extended highlights on YouTube. There were a lot of scuffles. There were a lot of flags.
Yeah.
There was a lot of penalty yardage in this game. For two teams that don't meet each other often, you'd have thought they absolutely hated one another. They were always like chipping with each other. But yeah, NIU needed this badly. Like I say, I remember the days of John Lynch, their star quarterback in the early 2010s. Like I say, when they were pretty relevant on the national scale. Like they were a big boy. But yeah, times on them, they've fallen hard in recent years. And as you say, we know Arkansas State, like I say, had that absolute ass whooping in the middle of the year, but then went on a great run at end of the year. Like I say, just reeling off wins to get to a bowl game. And yeah, they fell short, but it'll mean a lot to them get a bowl game, like I say, and their head coach. So this one was a pretty even contest. And honestly, some of the games we're going to talk about, we can't say that about. This was pretty much, yeah, anyone could have won this, and it was a very fiercely contested battle.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're penalty yardage, wait till we get to the guaranteed rate bowl. That is penalty yardage, Jesus. But yeah, I enjoyed this. Good game. Two teams gave it all. It was a very competitive game, which is what you want out of the bowl games, because as you said, so many of them are lopsided and just
Like
no contests. Sorry?
Not like South Alabama game.
Yeah,
that is the most one-sided bowl game I think I've ever seen.
Georgia? That was pretty one-sided, but yeah, we'll get onto that. I don't know. They're on this docket very soon, so let's move it on. Next up, we've got the Armed Forces Bowl, which took place between James Madison and Air Force, and nobody, apart from Brett, actually got this right. Air Force winning the game 31-21, and this was vintage Air Force, who have disappeared for the last month and a half. This is their 5th bowl win in a row for them. 350 yards on the ground for the Falcons translated into 37 minutes of possession against a James Madison defense that was giving up 60 yards per game on the ground for the entire season. And they were not that impacted by call-ups. Jordan McLeod played in this game, but the star of the show was Emmanuel Michel, running back for Air Force. 35 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns. John Lee Eldridge III had 78 as well. They just kept racking up yards after yards after yards. James Madison couldn't. They had 61 yards on 14 carries. Jordan McLeod was 20 of 33, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception. Air Force's defense was suffocating. Another one of these teams who really pulled it off when they needed to. 10 tackles for loss, 5 against the pass, 5 in the rushing game, 4 sacks, interception, forced fumble. That was the only 2 turnovers of the game, so quite a clean game in regards. And they had a 21% havoc rate as well, as McLeod got bullied all game. I mean, you know, James Madison, they've had a great season. They should have won the Sun Belt. They didn't. For Air Force, this is going to feel like, you know, they know they should have won the Mountain West. This is like the smallest of consolation prizes. But just for one day, we saw the best of what Air Force can be. And it just makes it the more infuriating that we didn't see that for the last month.
I don't understand Air Force. This game, it was meaningless. Where was this performance in the last 4 weeks of the regular season, where they dropped multiple games, when they had literally like 3 fingers in a Mountain West title game and they blew it? So infuriating. Like I said, they dominated. And like I said, their quarterback turned up, and like I said, for the last 4 weeks of regular season, he could not stop turning the ball over. He just goes out there and has a really great clean game, just hands it off, and just go to work on the ground. Yeah. Like, it's just annoying that we know what they can do against good opposition. Yeah, they put out a fairly strong side. When they needed it, it eluded them. And that would be really frustrating. Yeah. Like I said, Jordan McLeod, that was his final game, wasn't it? So, like I say, so a shame for James Madison. But, well, yeah, also I say head coach as well. Like, there's going to be some turnover. I still expect the Dukes to come in next year, like their first year where they're fully like, you can win it all. I still expect them to be competitive. But yeah, they got a dressing down. This would have been a wake-up call. They just got bullied and they just got bulldozed. And yeah, they'll be licking their wounds. For Air Force, it's kind of one of those glass half empty kind of wins. What could have been. But yeah, they beat a credible opposition at least. That means something. Next year, no excuses. It don't matter who's on the centre, who's running backs actually left on the team. You got to make a title game.
Yeah, they're consistently a top 5 offense. A top 5 defense. They're consistently a top 5 rushing offense. That should be enough. Like that should be enough to go and win you a Mountain West there. But well done. They win to Air Force. They win the Armed Forces Bowl, obviously named after it. So good win for them there. Right, let us move it on because there are quite a few more to go. So next we have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, one of the more well-known names here, taking place between Georgia State and Utah State. Georgia State 45-22 winners. Georgia State win their 3rd bowl game in 4 years. But what makes this so impressive for them, they were without 3 of their starting offensive linemen, and they were without their lead running back who's transferred to Missouri, and they were down 6 starters overall. Despite that, the Panthers rattled off 417 rushing yards on 44 carries. That includes their new starting running back, Freddie Brock. He had not had more than 3 carries in a game for this team before this. He broke the school record. He had 276 yards and a touchdown on 24 carries. Darren Granger, the quarterback, had 120 rushing yards. He supplied 260 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air to support the ground effort. The Panthers, again, 36 minutes of possession because, I mean, God, 417 yards. Now, the teams traded 2 touchdowns apiece in the first, but the Panthers' 3rd touchdown right at the end of the first sparked a run of 31 consecutive points for Georgia State, as Utah State, they racked up 161 yards of offense in the first quarter. They managed 180 for the rest of the game, the other 3 quarters. Georgia State are going to need to replace Granger going into next year, but they seem to have got the running back of the future. Utah will get Cooper Lagas back next year. He's been injured, so did not play in this, but an emphatic statement for the future from Georgia State, who, if they get the quarterback right this year, right, he going to be dangerous in the Sun Bowl next year with their newfound star at running back.
Yeah, I watched their highlights on YouTube. He put on a show. Like I say, they went out of a bang this season. Like I said, they just blew Utah's. The score don't do justice. Like I said, they blew them away. Running the ball, like I say, their special teams as well. There were some great returns to set them up on field position. They just caught them cold time and time again. And their secondary as well. Like I said, their defense was just really good. Like I said, and they just smothered. They just put a wet blanket on that chip pan fire that Utah State were, and they got nothing going in the second half. Second half was the dampest squib you'll see because it was just so one-sided. But yeah, the Panthers, it was a shellacking, like I said. And Brock, yeah, every time he touched the ball, you just thought, home run. Just magic happened. Like I say, he just bulldozed through guys.
Yeah, it was emphatic for Georgia State. They lost 4 of their last 5 in the season, so they came into this cold, but they say they've sent out a statement for next year that maybe better things are coming, and they got some playmakers there. So well done to them for winning the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Next, we've got the 68 Ventures Bowl. As Ryan mentioned, one of the most one-sided affairs you will ever see in your life. The South Alabama Eagles 59, the Eastern Michigan.
I didn't enjoy it in the end. I was just like, stop. You know that meme where it's like, stop, he's already dead. It just wasn't fun.
Yeah, of course, I meant the South Alabama Jaguars because it was against the Eastern Michigan Eagles. There were Eagles in this, but the Jaguars caught the Eagles on the ground, not flying, and absolutely mauled them 59-10. Let's just quickly go through. So 8.7 yards per play for South Alabama on offense, 3 for Eastern Michigan. 635 yards of offense for South Alabama, 183 yards for Eastern Michigan. Total EPA, so expected points per play on offense for South Alabama, was 18.6. For Eastern Michigan, it was minus 22.4. So there was a 40-point swing between offensive EPA with these 2 teams. 73 yards through the air for Eastern Michigan, 77 on the ground, 307 in the air for South Alabama, 320 on the ground. There's not much to say here, is there? This was just a wham bam, thank you, man. One team came, wanted to play. One just wanted to go hit the beach and be done with this year.
Yeah, it was like 40-0 at half time. And like you just thought, is this in the spirit of things? Yeah, go on, just crush them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt bad for Eastern Michigan in the end. Like their players, they looked dejected after like 3 quarters. They're just thinking, and in the end, South Alabama just took pity on them. They kind of just run away the fourth quarter and just kind of stopped scoring. With like 9 minutes to go, there were like no points scored because they're just like, we've had enough. This is not fun anymore.
No.
But yeah, this is not usually what happens in bowl games. Like they're not usually played in this kind of spirit. But yeah, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And yeah, Cry Crane, it didn't just derail, it smashed through the front window of a primary school.
Yeah.
I don't it was one of the things like I thought they'd be in their championship game and they got their ass handed to them in a bowl game. But yeah, I think they've already forgotten about it, to be honest.
This is the first big test for Chris Creighton here because year on year he's made steady improvement at a team where it's been so hard to win. But now now you've got to. But this is the first year where you can say he's not done the job he should have. Really, I mean, you can still say he went 6 wins, he got to a bowl, but you've got to make expectations higher, and he will expect it to be better. So next year's a big year for him and his reign there. If they can get back to where they were moving forward, this is a blip in the road. If not, maybe indicative of something going down, but I'm liable to believe that he will get things going. Right, let us move on. Next up, we have the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl, and actually going on to a nice story this year. Northwestern versus Utah. Now, this was a sickos game. Northwestern 14, Utah 7, battle of defense. This is the lowest scoring Las Vegas Bowl since 2011, and this is one of the more tenured, longer running bowls. So that is a record not lightly broken, but Northwestern, they're not going to care. 8 wins, including bowl success for David Brown, is a hell of a season for a team coming in that was mired. I put it in a thunderstorm, but a thunderstorm would be light compared to what they were going through coming into this year. Hell of a job from him. The Northwestern defense starred free safety Jaheim Joseph, not related to Kirby, had 2 interceptions on the day. The Wildcats defense overall had 2 picks, 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, all from different players, a forced fumble, and they gave up just 83 yards in the air, which negated Utah's 11-minute possession advantage they had in this. Turnover luck was 13 points in Northwestern's favor. They won the turnover battle 3-0. Now, that's not to put anything against Utah's defense. We know how good they are. They balled out as well. 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, kept Northwestern's run game to 2.8 yards per carry, but the only difference is Ben Bryant, the Northwestern QB, he played a clean game, 222 yards, 2 passing touchdowns for him, which separated the teams. And you can go off on Bryson Barnes now because you said that he was going to suck, and he threw 2 picks, had about 50 yards in this one. Jaquindon Jackson couldn't get going, and when Jaquindon can't get going, you basically cut the teeth off this team. There's only so long that defense can hold out for. But one for the purists and a worthy winner and a great season for Northwestern.
Yeah. After everything they had before the season started and that dark cloud that hung over them with everything that's going on and all the distractions, you wouldn't have been that surprised if Northwestern would have absolutely sucked this year. Like I say, of all the players that left and everything, I expected it. But I feel vindicated. We both picked Northwestern to win. Yeah. And yeah, their defense is showing up. And I said the key would be Bryson Barnes not playing well because I didn't rate him. And the interceptions, the throws to Joseph, they were terrible. Both of them went into like double, triple coverage, trying to force throws that weren't there. And they were just mopped up. Yeah. That team without Cam Rising is just a shell of itself. Jaquindon Jackson, yep, he couldn't get knocked going at all. Like I say, they just got stifled. The Wildcats defense was just great. Their offense didn't do a lot, but it didn't have to because it got good field position. It just mopped up what the defense gave it. It was not a good game. It wasn't good to watch, but the right team won. And for next year, like it offers just a little glimpse of hope for a team that is rebuilding. They've just got Timmy Oki, a London British-born 3-star corner, so he's going to be a guy to watch next year. But Northwestern, I'm hoping they can leave what happened at the start of this year behind them, and they can move on. And it's going to be hard now the Big Tens have merged. Like I say, life might be difficult, but the good recruiting classes, good coach, some good coaching, they might stabilize quicker than people expect. But yeah, Utah, I don't know. I feel like now I've just always been looking through them for like red tinted spectacles. And they're just not that good. They're just not as good as we think they are, maybe. Their defense is stellar, but the offense, it just always lets itself down. And I just feel like that's going to be a trend now.
I feel like Rising's I don't like to use the term game manager because obviously it's used about Goff all the time. That's kind of what he is. He's like the field marshal who makes sure the offense is just good enough to capitalize on what the defense does. And when you don't have that, that's where this team's out of balance.
Yeah, but Bryson Barnes can't do that. He tries to force things and he's turned the ball over a lot and he's made lots of bad throws because he's tried to make things happen because his defense was struggling or the run game had failed. And yeah, he tried to play hero ball.
Yeah.
There's one of these picks where he literally just launches it deep. It goes past the corner, past the receiver, and Joseph was just a free safety. and it just falls into his lap. It just runs it deep. Like I said, that's the kind of player where you just think, I'd want that ball back. But yeah, it was, the right team won, and their defense, it put on a show against a very credible opposition, like I say. A lot of people will have looked at that game and gone, Utah will win that because they're Utah.
Yeah, exactly. That's like high power 5 versus low power 5 in a lot of people's books, and the low power 5 won. But David Brown, good job you done there. Tremendous. Look forward to seeing your team next year. Right, let us move it on, and we next go to the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl. The two teams who get to go out to Hawaii and sun it out on the beach when they're done. The Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, the San Jose State Spartans. We both called this one wrong. We said it was the Spartans, but the Chanticleers got the win 24-14 in a very tightly contested game. Again, Coastal scored a touchdown in the first quarter with 3 minutes to go in it. There was no more points until 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. So 2 full quarters bypassed with no points whatsoever. But then Coastal ran out to a 17-0 lead. They got another touchdown and a field goal at the start of the fourth. San Jose State threatened a comeback. Chevin Cordero found Sam Olsen from 35 yards for a touchdown. Quayle Conley got a touchdown run from 12 yards out to make it 17-14. But Coastal saw this one out. Sam Pinckney, the most recognizable of their skilled players. Yeah, just was it just to seal the game? Their star playmaker, which he is really on that team, came up big when they needed to. But this was a game of very fine margins for Coastal. This is 8 wins and bowl success in the first year of Tim Beck. Not what they've been used to in recent years, but it is a decent start for him. But this is where, a game where the smallest of mistakes make the biggest of difference. There were 2 turnovers in this game, both of them fumbles by Kyrie Robinson, the San Jose State running back, the first of which came when they were on the Chanticleer 6 near the end of the third quarter. Coastal turned it around. He gave the ball away. They had an 11-play, 80-yard drive, which gave them their second touchdown to increase the lead from 14. And from there, San Jose just didn't have the time to worm their way back into this one. And that's sometimes it's the thing with these bowl games, right? When they're uber competitive like this is, the tiniest of mistakes is punished, and just 2 little mistakes on the day. Coastal were clear on the mistake front, ruins your bowl game. And, for Tim Beck, decent first year. Job well done for San Jose. Back to the drawing board. Go compete for the Mountain West next year.
Yeah, it was a weird game. Like I say, Kyrie Robinson. It's the fact that he fumbles in the red zone once, he don't get the ball for quite a while, and then they go back to him and trust him, and he coughs it up again. The second one was pretty one of those like that. Yeah, we can't have that. It was another very costly fumble. And I'm willing to, I said this at the time, I'll overlook the fact I think Sam Pinckney clearly grabbed the corner's face mask on the one-handed touchdown. It was clearly offensive pass interference, but it was an absolutely ridiculous touchdown catch to win the game. Just goes up with that big one-handed mitt, pulls it in, and it was a catch worthy of winning a game. But yeah, 2 teams that they're not at their best. They're going through a transition period. They're just trying to outlast one another. But in the end, it was the turnover margin. You turn the ball over inside the 6-yard line and you lose a fairly close game. Those things often go hand in hand. Coastal next year, interested to see what happens now. A lot of that team of the last 2 or 3 years that's kind of dominant, it's all gone. So now it's going to be a totally fresh start because they'll have, for the first time in a long time, a new quarterback.
And speaking of Ethan Vasco, the guy who is slated in, who did come into this, 20 of 33, 199 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was lead rusher, I believe, as well, with 54 yards on 16 carries. I mean, it's quite a steady performance from him. As I say, San Jose made the mistake with the turnovers for a guy he's been sat behind Grayson for so long now. He's played a bit of ball because he's been injured, but fairly assured debut. And that Spartans defense is good. Like, a lot of rookie QBs, not experienced QBs, will make mistakes against them. Him, clean game. Look good.
Yeah, like I say, you need that competitive action to go into the season when you know that you're the favourite in spring camp. You need for confidence. He's proven he can do it, like I said, when there's a trophy on the line. So yeah, he'll feel really good going into next season, coming off of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So well done, Coastal. Next up we have, so we're on the 26th of December now, the Quick Lane Bowl, Bowling Green versus Minnesota, Power 5 versus Group of 5, and the Power 5 team, outside of one player, it didn't look that great. Minnesota did win this game 30-24, which marks the 7th consecutive bowl win for Minnesota and the 5th in a row for PJ Fleck. But they only got here because they had the best APR amongst 5 win teams. So technically did not earn their right here. For Bowling Green, this was their 2nd successive Quick Lane Bowl loss. But this all came down to one guy, Ryan. We talk about Minnesota. It is the factory of running backs for the future. And Darius Taylor, who has been injured for a good part of this season, 35 carries, 208 yards, 1 touchdown. But you know his stats for the year? He has played 5 games this season. He has 800 rushing yards. His 5-game totals this year, 193, 138, 198, 59 and 208 yards. This is the Minnesota team we know. They will ground and pound you. They will force a running back down your throat until you choke. That's how they play. Quarterback Cole Kramer, it was 8 of 16 for 26 yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception. So they used him in the red zone occasionally, but this was the Darius Taylor show, and Minnesota already have their next big thing at running back.
Yeah, he's going to have. I mean, he could be in the Heisman conversation next year. If this little small sample size, he can produce over 12 games potentially. Like next year, he's going to run wild. Minnesota will do piss all because they're not a very good team. And the fact PJ Fleck's only got a job because he wins ball games. They're terrible throughout the year. It's a bowl and they win, and he gets another extension. It's just one of those weird things. They're just so happy to settle for mediocrity. Bless them. But yeah, he just put it all on the line. The defense was okay. Quarterback, it's a huge issue in Minnesota, isn't it? Like I say, Khaled Manis wasn't very good, but also he's gone.
So no one's picking him up.
Whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, actually it could be good. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how some individuals do next year. But yeah, for Bowling Green, they had a really good year. Like I said, they went pretty much toe to toe with the Power 5 side. So the Falcons, they can hold their heads pretty high.
I mean, Connor Bazelek's found his level now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he played really well.
Yeah, 221 yards and a tutty for him. Didn't turn it over. Only got sacked. Well, he got sacked 3 times. But Odiu Hilaire was the guy for them. 10 catches, 152 yards and a touchdown for him. But they ran the ball well. They were in a hole. They were in a couple of score hole at times. And against a team like Minnesota who run the ball, it's very difficult to claw leads back against them. But they did very admirably. So Bowling Green will not be disappointed one bit with their performance. They end up the season 7-6. They were 5-3 in the MAC, plus 500 in both disciplines. Good for them because the season before they weren't so great. Minnesota 6-7. I mean, it's poor ass year. We know what they are. Let's move it on. Next up, we have the Surf Pro First Responder Bowl, and one of the biggest kick-ins going here. Texas State versus Rice. Texas State won 45-21. This was the first ever bowl appearance as an FBS team for Texas State. They've only been up since about 2014, but they've never been to a bowl game before. They forced 7 turnovers en route to a big win. This is a big win for GJ Kinney and the program. They end with 8 wins, bowl success, and this is with a roster that has 56 transfer players on it. So not much homegrown, a lot of multiple changing guys. He brought in about 10 guys with him from Incarnate Word. So a lot of chopping and changing here. Linebacker Brian Holloway starred. 2 pick sixes combined for 84 yards of returns for those to increase State's lead both times. But overall, they had 5 passes intercepted. They intercepted Rice 5 times. Rice also muffed a kickoff and they muffed a punt return. So 7 turnovers in all. You cannot do that. And Texas State just kind of went crazy on them. And Rice were just never really in this. As I say, 7 overall turnovers from Rice, none from Texas State. They were clean on the day. They had 6 tackles for loss as well. They had 4 sacks as they made life really rough. But again, ran the ball well, 168 yards, 152 yards from the air. TJ Finley was a spectator. They just kept turning it over. Jamal Jeter, the running back, yeah, 3 touchdowns. He only got 36 yards, but short fields kept giving them the chance to get away with it. I mean, for Rice, it was terrible. AJ Padgett, 9 of 20, 84 yards, 3 interceptions. Did have 3 touchdowns, but again, they worked with short fields. Shokai Ifraish, 2 of 4, 19 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So the backup came in, he threw two completions and 2 interceptions. That's the kind of day it was for them. This is a good start for Texas State and JG Kinney. 8 wins, bowl win. Maybe there was a chance to do a little bit more in the Sun Belt, but overall, he'd have taken that year 1 with all this changeover, surely.
Yeah, he'll be very happy with how the season panned out. Disappointing game because, yeah, if you turn the ball over 7 times, you're not going to win any game. Pretty much impossible. Rice obviously was shocked because JT Daniels was supposed to play, but obviously, like I say, he was forced to basically medically retire. He was basically told, yeah, you're not playing this game, we won't let you. And yeah, it was a disaster. Kind of feel sorry for the end, get to a ball game, yeah, just they gave the ball away every which way they could. And in the end for Texas State, it was so easy. Like I said, they really did not have to do much. Those 40 plus points. And yeah, the score line, there was only one team in this game at all. Rice were just really disappointed. They just shot themselves in the foot time and time again. But yeah, a well-deserved good season getting Texas State. Like I said, they've warranted this.
Yeah, and they would expect them to make noise in the summer. Maybe not win it, but they'll be a team that you don't want to play because they could potentially beat anyone on their day. Right, now we're going to get onto a really fun one. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Mentioned it earlier, Kansas and UNLV. So this is Power 5 on Group of 5. The Jayhawks against the Rebels. Kansas 49, UNLV 36. You didn't know this was Power 5 versus Group of 5, but you know the most crazy stuff. You know, I talked about penalty yardage in a game, right? Do you want to know how many penalty yards there were in this game? 315.
Wow.
315 yards of penalties. 220 of them were for Kansas. 90 of them were for UNLV. So overall, 581 yards of offense for Kansas, 410 for UNLV. But when you took the penalties out of it, it was just about similar. I think that's why they had so much yardage. But 449 through the air for Kansas, 144 on the ground. UNLV 288 in the air, 106 on the ground. 3 turnovers from Kansas. They fumbled it twice, but they recovered them both. But 3 interceptions, 2 interceptions for UNLV. Jason Bean, I mean, these stats are unbelievable. He went 19 of 28, so he only had 19 completions, 449 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Jaden Maeva on UNLV's side, 24 of 35, 282 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This was just a game where it went all over the place. For UNLV, this is their most wins in a season since 1984. It's their first bowl appearance since 2014. So Bob Odom and that will be proud. For Kansas, it's the first time in program history they've ever had twin hat-trick touchdown wide receivers because Luke Grimm had 4 catches for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. So 4 catches, 3 touchdowns. Lawrence Arnold had 6 catches for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns. So 1 in every 2 catches a touchdown for him as, defense was kind of irrelevant in this. But you've got to give kudos to UNLV here. They took the lead, but then they were in holes of 28-7, which they brought all the way back to 28-24. And then they went down 35-24. They came back to 35-30. It was only in the fourth quarter they gave up 2 touchdowns and they went down by 19. But they still had chance for another touchdown. Jordan Maeva found Seneca McKee from 50 yards with 6.5 minutes left. It was still a 2-score game. They fought really hard, but this was just a game. It was a turnover fest, a touchdown fest, an offensive fest. This is for the guy who likes offensive football, this one. Very entertaining, very competitive. Right team won, but both teams, again, will come out of this and they'll feel pretty happy with themselves, I reckon, overall.
Yeah, Kansas are weird, let's say, because they make life so hard themselves. Honestly, if you could win a game with 220 penalty yards, that's impressive. Some teams don't get that many penalty yards in a season.
That's Iowa's offensive stats for 3 games.
Like that. All those yards, all those penalties, that is it. And the problem is, like, say, UNLV, if you're going to give them 220 extra yards and help them move the ball, they're going to take it. Like, they are a very plucky side, and you can't afford to give them motivation and any extra kind of force or fire in their belly. And that's exactly what Kansas did. And Kansas could not, until I see the fourth quarter, they could not pull away because they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. And they were boneheaded penalties as well. Like, they were stupid things. And in the end, like I said, the Rebels were very unlucky to not go into this potential level or get to overtime. Like, they really did put in a performance where they did themselves proud. And yeah, their defense, it got absolutely rinsed on the day. They just got shredded. But their offense, it made a hell of a game of it and came back from 2 good deficits. So yeah, they can hold their heads high of really commendable effort in a losing effort. Like I said, the Jayhawks will be they'll breathe a sigh of relief that, like I said, they played really well, but also they were incredibly sloppy. And they could very easily have lost that game if their offense had not dug them out of holes. But yeah, a bit of quite a chaotic game, yeah. Quite what you want from a bowl game. Like, it had everything.
And a long one, because it was 18 penalties for 216 yards for Kansas and 9 penalties for 99 yards for UNLV. So that's 27 flags in the game when you want to have 80 plays a game, something like that. And
Both of them usually quite clean.
Yeah, they are 27. And again, these teams, they're Power 5, Group of 5. They're not rivals. They won't play each other all the time. But apparently this one, they got a little bit chippy with one another. But well done to Kansas, but really good effort there from UNLV. Did I pick them for that? No, we both picked Kansas. We got away with that one. And we got the next one as well. So 27th of December, the Military Bowl presented by GoBowling.com. Virginia Tech 41, Tulane 20. And this was another team who, there was some rushing performances and a half in this. 380 rushing yards for Virginia Tech, who win their first bowl game since 2016. They ended a run of 4 without a win. This was a game mired by torrential rain, caused 8 total fumbles in this game. They were just dropping here, there, and everywhere. I think it was, if I remember rightly, 6 from Tulane and 2 from Virginia. No, sorry, it was 5 from Virginia Tech. 6 from Virginia Tech. They've recovered 4 of them. They lost 2 of them. Tulane fumbled twice, lost twice. It was an 8-point swing in turnover look at the end. But another quarterback, Kyron Drones, threw for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. He ran for 197 yards and a touchdown, which was a record in this bowl game for them there. Tulane, Kai Horton, he's been sort of the backup guy in there when starter's not been around. He was 13 of 20, 119 yards, threw a pick. No, he didn't. No touchdowns, no picks. Clean game from him, but Virginia Tech ran the ball down Tulane's throat. You can tell that Willie Fritz has gone. You can tell that Mercurial QB1 Michael Pratt has gone. This is a team that's going into full rebuild mode. And for Virginia Tech, it's a nice story at the end of the year for them to get a bowl win. They get 7 wins overall. Again, gives them something to build on moving forward. Impressive rushing performance. Some teams, they just went crazy this weekend rushing, right?
This was one of those games where, unfortunately, I feel like the wheels have fallen off the Tulane. Like they are the biggest victim of their own success, probably in the country. Best corners off the draft, quarterback's gone, head coach is gone, and he's like taking I don't know, some say sideways move. Like say he's kind of left them for pastures new. And yeah, they had like say the disastrous title game, and now they've kind of followed up with. I'd say it was another disaster. I'd say Virginia Tech that they're reeling out there. I'd say the last few years, we'll say yeah, they've not been kind to them. I'd say they've had some difficult periods, but they really came to show up. Like I say, they knew that Tulane are no mugs just because, like I say, a lot of their players they just weren't playing, but they went out there and they gave it their all. Like you say, on the ground, absolutely shredded them. And for the Hokies, it's a big win. It means a lot to them. It might not have meant a lot to some of the Tulane guys. They might have overlooked this game. They might have like I say, kind of side-eyed it. But yeah, they got their ass handed to them, and the right team won. Like I say, because they came to play. Like I say, and like I say, it's hard to play as well in terrible conditions. Like I say, you're thinking like since the game when it gets stopped, and they're waiting at their long periods, long breaks, waiting for the weather. Like it's all like mental games. And like I say, the team that adjusts to the conditions most usually wins. Like I say, and yeah, it was basically a washout. Not a lot of good football could be played, but the team that had the best mentality, best game planning strategy to combat that won. And in the end, fairly comfortably as well. So yeah, the Hokies, like I say, they end their season like on a high. And for Tulane, last few weeks, it just couldn't have gone any worse. And their future, like I say, very much up in the air how they bounce back from this. But yeah, Virginia and Virginia Tech, I really hope next year it's kind to them. Football's better when the state of Virginia is playing good football, like I say, and their teams have been really in the last few years, like I say, they have struggled. So yeah, I'm glad for the Hokies to get this for them and their fans as well. For anyone that sat through that game, like I say, with their ponchos, like they were pretty miserable. But yeah, they started to get done.
Yeah, and speaking of Virginia teams who played well, on that same day, actually, in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, West Virginia against UNC, and we talk about a team in turmoil, we talk about UNC, but West Virginia, winner of the Mayo Bowl, Neil Brown gets the Mayo Bath after being on one of the hottest seats in the country at the start of this year. He has really turned it around this season, 30-10. Winners are West Virginia, and they went crazy in this one. Obviously, no Drake May for UNC, but Amari Hampton, the star running back, was playing. But poor Connor Harrell, the redshirt sophomore, I believe, who is slated to take over from May next year, they did not give him an easy game to come into here. You know, the one thing about West Virginia, their defense is damn good. They tallied 7 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, 11 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, both of which were in the red zone. They had a havoc rate overall of 20%, and they shut out the UNC offense in the second half altogether. No comeback was ever threatened in this. The defensive tackle, Edward Vestranen, the defensive end, Jalen Thornton, the outside linebacker, Jared Bartlett, all had a hand in 2 sacks apiece. Star safety Aubrey Burks had an interception, a really good one. And they kept Amari Hampton down to 62 yards on 19 carries. Their special teams dominated. They had a punt return touchdown. They got a turnover off their own punt. And they had a successful fake field goal in this one as well, just to rub it off. And the offense did what was needed, including a 75-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. But this was domination in all 3 facets of the game here, right? That West Virginia defense is nasty, and not for the first time a poor UNC quarterback has had a bullseye put on his head and no protection given to him, and has been absolutely destroyed. I felt sorry for the young kid.
Once again, here we are worrying about this is going to be the future of UNC. If Ryan and Antony next year can't get it going, and he's a guy that really should be in the Heisman contention, if he can't get it going, no one will. Quarterback won't get no help. He'll play as well as he can. Wins, losses, defense, pretty much non-existent. Unfortunately, it's a team, again, it's just going nowhere. Like I say, I think next year, like I say, could be one of their worst in recent memory. Like I say, on the other side, West Virginia, lucky. Like I say, built on a stacked defense. Offense, like I say, can move the ball. Like I say, it's got some structure now in the coaching position. And they went out there and, yeah, they knocked UNC around for fun. On the ground, through the air, defense, special teams, like they just had their way with them, like a toy, like a cat playing with a ball of yarn. Like it was so one-sided. And yeah, they fully deserve to win. And I'd like to see West Virginia next year, like you say, be competitive. I'd like to see them in that race at the end of the season to still be in with a chance, like I say, because they're a good outfit and they've got some good players. Yeah, they can take a lot of credit from the end of this season and go into next year with tons of confidence. UNC, we can't say that next year. They'll be going in with way more questions than they will have answers. I'm quite surprised Ryan and Antony has not hit the portal, if I'm honest.
I mean, there's a lot of trouble there because I was looking through it and they said this game I think it took place about 2 hours away from Chapel Hill where they play. And it was like they said, it was a vast West Virginia crowd. Like the fans are not going to watch them play at the minute. You have had back-to-back NFL quarterbacks. One of them has a chance of being picked one overall. Sam Howell was talked about as an overall one pick. And you've not even sniffed the AAC title game. Like, you've not even really come close to doing anything with that. And it's always been that defense sucks. And in this case, that did what they could, but the offensive line has always struggled. We were talking about Sam Howell earlier with the Commanders, and it's like he's never had a fair shake of it. Not since that year when he lost Carter and he lost Daz Newsome and he lost De'Army Brown and all those guys, and they just sort of abandoned him. He's been abandoned ever since by his college and NFL teams, and I feel like they're about to hit a wall now under Matt Brown. They can't go any further. All that talent and they can't get there. I think they're going to go down. Do you? I do.
Oh yeah, history is repeating itself. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a quarterback to just carry a team, and now they don't have a quarterback. They don't have anyone half as good as Howell or May would be. And honestly, I say Matt Brown, I can't defend him anymore. Like people like say they must be getting tired and fed up and feel like the team is the next year or two is well, even now he needs a new direction. You ain't getting it of him. He's a dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They need to get rid. I think they will next year. I think that'll be that. If the new quarterback is not NFL caliber like they've had with the last two, they're going to struggle. Anyhow, moving on. Still got a few to go. So next one up is the DirecTV Holiday Bowl, and we all called this wrong. USC smashing Louisville 42-28, but there's one talking point in this one really, Rye, and it's the guy who broke all the records, Miller Moss, 23 of 33, 372 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, was throwing it round for fun. Taj Washington had himself a day. They had over 500 yards of offense. Like, that's the good USC when his offense is humming, Lincoln Riley's, and the defense is okay. Louisville have just had a shocking end to the season, and, they're still ahead of where they were, but they've been blown out in the championship game. They've been blown out in a bowl game. They're still far away from competing. But Miller Moss, now that Malachi Nelson has left, he's gone. He's not at USC anymore, and there's a whole bunch of guys leaving USC. Leaves the door open for guys like him, and he put one hell of an audition in for next year.
Yeah, like if he wants the job, he could well win it. Like I say, he's kind of put the guys on alert now. Like I say, nationally now people know who he is. Like I say, a lot of people didn't know him beforehand. Some guys that are going to stick around for next year went out there and they had themselves a day. Like I say, no one's going to No one knows what to expect from USC next year. It could be good, could be bad, could be ugly. Like I said, the guys that have stuck around obviously want to be there. They'll obviously bring in the recruits and the stars, like I said, and they'll try and rely on them. But yeah, they're kind of like say they're going to be putting some plasters over positions. Like I said, because they've had a mass exodus by their standards. Replacing Kilburns, that's not easy. Anyone expecting Miller Moss to just step in and do that, like I say, it's not going to happen overnight. But at least they've got a guy now that's shown that when called upon can do it. Louisville, well, they just exposed themselves to the big fat phonies, didn't they? Bad title game, awful in this game. Plummer was pony. The defense got shredded. Right, and that's the kind of level of competition you need to be good against. You get a big bowl game like that and get to play like national TV against all those fans, and you put that out as your performance. That's not good enough. Outside of the NFTC, they're not good enough, are they?
And Tulane beat them last year in the bowl game. Tulane beat USC. They're a group of 5 side. No excuse.
Louisville next year, I kind of hope they just go back to being mediocre. Like I said, I think they will, if I'm honest. Like I said, I don't think they've turned that corner. I don't think they're going to be the next powerhouse of the ACC. I'm just not buying it.
No. Going to be NC State with the class we've got. We've absolutely killed it in the recruiting class. USC is such a weird one, though, isn't it? It's like, why is somebody like Dorian Singer was the latest to go today? Like, they're losing their entire. It's going to be Zacharias Branch next year. It's just odd how they're losing. Do you reckon they don't want to do the whole East Coast trip every 2-week type thing, and they're like, we want to stay over there? Is that having an effect? Because they're losing so many star players.
It could be, yeah. It could be leaving the Pac-12, yeah. It could be that whole the travel. It could be family. It could be like they want to stay there on the West Coast. Like I said, they don't want to do that. They don't like the fact of they're don't want to play the Big Ten. Like I said, they don't want to do the commute. Like I say, they don't want it to maybe interfere with their studies because they're going to be racking up hella miles next year. They're the Trojans. So yeah, I think some of them are probably like, that's not for me. This is not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up.
No, and you're coming up against some of these Big Ten defenses that are going to leave marks on you, like week in, week out. You think of these linebackers, DBs, linemen. You're going to take a pounding when you come to half of these places, and you've got to fly half the country to do it. I think it's putting some of them off, and they don't want to. So it's something to keep an eye on. But there are a lot of guys who have left there. But let's move it on. Next, we have the Tax Act Texas Bowl, Oklahoma State versus Texas A&M, and A&M are so bad they can't even win the bowl game, which is named after them. OK State win 31-23, and end up season, given the start they had to get to the Big 12 title game. Yeah, they got blown out, but the win here represents a 10-win season for them. It's a bowl win. They look pretty good again. Both sides of the ball. You talk about Alan Bowman, good Alan Bowman and bad Alan Bowman. This was good Alan Bowman. 34 of 49, 402 yards and 2 interceptions. Did throw a couple of picks in there as well. Ollie Gordon, don't know why he's still playing. He should be in the draft, but 27 carries, 118 yards and a touchdown for him. Kept the chains moving, grinding out the hard yards. Rashad Owens, the standout receiver, he had 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brennan Presley had 152 yards. Didn't get a touchdown on the day, but got the yardage in there as well. Texas A&M, again, just flattering to deceive. They did hang around in this game. But they kept having to sort of settle for field goals, and then the third quarter it got to 31-13. They were miles behind. Yeah, they scored the last 2 scores of the game, but OK State got ahead and coasted with Ollie Gordon and had a good Alan Bowman performance, and they will probably enjoy this season. They won't have enjoyed the shellacking they got in the championship game, but overall, double-digit wins, bowl win. You don't sniff your nose at that.
Yeah, they needed it. They needed this after, like I said, getting their ass handed to them. And they needed to justify, like say, that Gundy won Big 12 head coach of the year, which everyone thought was a bit odd. But it went out there, and yeah, they put out a professional performance. Like I say, yeah, we've seen good, the bad, and the ugly from Alan Bowman. And yeah, this was one of his better games, like I say. And yeah, the scoreline doesn't tell a lot, like I say. They were pretty much out of sight. And in the end, they just felt like they were like soft zone, garbage time touchdowns for A&M.
Yeah.
That team, I just never liked them. They just irritate me. Could be good, never live up to it. All their recruits and everything, all they talk about is classes, but everyone just decommits anyway. Half of them never even see the bloody field because their brand of football is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good team. OK State next year, they've got a right or wrong, and they need to go back to the championship game. I like the Cowboys. I said they're a good side, but yeah, they had a good year. It ended disappointingly, but they can go into next season with some actual momentum now.
Yeah, absolutely, they can. Right, let us move on. Next up, the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. We're on the 28th of December. We'll go through this a bit quick now because there's been a lot on, but some nicely deserved wins in the postseason here, right? Boston College, the Eagles playing the SMU Mustangs. The Eagles win 23-14. They were behind in this one at the half, but they shut out SMU in the second half. No points whatsoever. They got 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Thomas Castellanos, someone we know and admire on here, 12 of 18 and 102 yards through the air. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Kept it clean. 20 carries, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He was running at 7.8 yards per click, backed up by Kai Robichaux, the actual running back there. 13 carries, 91 yards, touchdown for him. But this is another nice story. Like, Boston College were getting mocked, rightly so, a lot at the start of the season. For them to turn it round, go on the 5-run win streak, get to near the top of the AAC to build to the end of the season, to win a bowl game. They found a good one in Castellanos, and their future bright if they carry on in this direction.
I mean, if you told Boston College fans after 4 weeks of the season, you will be a conference champion in a bowl game, they probably would have laughed at you. Because they were downright dreadful. They were embarrassing, weren't they? The start of the season. They could not get their shit together. And they were playing bad opponents, and they were still playing terribly. Like, they were, but yeah. Something just clicked, didn't it, for the freshman, I said, Castellanos. Like, in the last, like, say, 5, 6 weeks of the season, it kind of all just came together for him. He could just do no wrong. And yeah, this game, best performance? No. Any mistakes? No, not really. Like I say, he did enough. He game managed them for a bowl win. And I'm not going to fool myself into thinking, yeah, the Eagles are back next year. Like, they're back, baby. They're going to win. But I expect them to be a damn sight more consistent than what this year. Well, inconsistent is what I'll say this year. They go out and they part a stellar performance, and then they go lose to a terrible Power 5 team, or they'd almost get upset by an FCS team. Like, you just don't know which team turns up next year. Start season is you need to go. And if Castellanos, like I say, if he really is it, the next year, like, they should be good. And like I said, I want to see what he can do against a good 12, 13 game span. Let's see how good the kid is, because he's shown in flashes this year that he can be the future and the franchise quarterback. Now, he's someone that I've put expectation on. Like I say, if you can do it when they're bad, go do it when they're good.
Yeah, exactly. And,
And SMU, they'll be miffed, but yeah, they had a pretty good downside. They had a damn good year, didn't they? Like I said, things went.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they'll not be disappointed. Oh, well, of course they'll be disappointed. But overall, both teams can look back on the season and be proud of what they've achieved. So, yeah, we very up there with that one. Another team who good things can be said about this year, Rutgers. Rutgers got the win over Miami in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, 31-24. A very, very plucky win from them, actually. With 10 minutes left in the third quarter, Miami were winning by 3, but the big play, Rutgers recovered a blocked punt in the Miami end zone for a touchdown, and then they went on to score another touchdown in the fourth, and then a field goal to make it 31-17 with 2.5 minutes to go. Miami could not come back from that. Gavin Wimsatt, the quarterback, didn't have anything to do. 7 of 15 for 84 yards. Kyle Monangai, the running back, 163 yards and a touchdown for him on the day was great. And the Rutgers defense, which has been really good, they had an interception on the day because they've got loads of season. You know, that cornerback room's good. To say the special teams came to play. And Rutgers, another who people laugh at a lot, but this year they've looked better and they end it with a win against a Miami team who on paper are a lot better than they are, and they will take pride from this season as well. And for Miami, another disappointment, which they're going to have to build back off.
Yeah, I'm happy for Rutgers. Rutgers feel like the Detroit Lions. Like, they've been the butt of the joke last year, haven't they? They've always been the whipping boys that people kind of just rag on. But this year, the Scarlet Knights, who are not known for football prowess, they turned up. Like I say, Max Melton, that secondary has kept them in a lot of games, lots of turnovers, but for the whole, been fairly consistent and done pretty well in division. And yeah, they rightly won and capped off for them what will be a really memorable season. They got a good ball game against a very prestigious opponent. On the flip side, Miami, another forgettable year. A program that you'll love to hate. You just don't know what they're going to do. You never trust them, and they just feel weird. Like I say, they should be better than they are, but then they put out terrible performances. They let themselves down. Yeah, they're incredibly frustrating, and they should be a good team because they're the Miami Hurricanes, for God's sake. Don't ever get a pass for being bad. But yeah, another disappointing end to a season for them, and another just a big conveyor belt at quarterback again.
Yeah, absolutely. Another rebuild year for them. Next up, how do you feel about Pop-Tarts? Specifically, 6-foot Pop-Tarts, edible suits, getting burned alive and then eaten. How did you make the spectacle of the Pop-Tarts Bowl? I figured that's what bowl season's for. I loved it. Kansas State beat North Carolina State 28-19, but that's irrelevant to what goes on with the mascot. He got burned alive, in quotes, and then eaten. His edible suit was eaten afterwards. You a fan of that?
Yeah, I think it's time that we go away from traditional bowl games and it's time to start getting a bit weird. It kind of overshadowed the entire football game because it was kind of weird and sadistic, but funny at the same time. Like the fact that they were just kind of like ripping him apart like they were in a zombie movie and eating his innards. I like Pop Tarts, so yeah, I thought this one was quite funny. And then I did like the board game the other day where like he had the little sign that said like I'm not edible like the Pop Tart.
Yeah, yeah, that was hilarious. They're just like playing off that. It's like, have a bit of fun with it. That's what ball games are. They're a bit of fun at the end of the year. They are serious, but you've got to lighten them up as well. And I thought that was the right sort of humor. For some of them have been like OTT or just missed them out, but that was pretty good. But Kansas State, it was great. Disappointing season for them. Will Howard, I mean, Christ, him going to Ohio State. I did not see that coming potentially, but I mean, like, quickly aside, that fringe Heisman guy, if he goes there, do you reckon?
Yeah, he's done good stuff at Kansas State, but also Kansas State has got a good offensive coordinator and a good offense. I don't think Ohio State are going to replicate that. I don't know if this move is good for him.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that.
It's a high-profile move for his draft.
Yeah, yeah.
He needs it for like his draft stock. Like it's a flashy move, but
Yeah.
We're not going to see the fun stuff that we saw of him. We might not see him go out there and just lay waste to teams because Ohio State, well, they didn't really do that to anyone this year.
No, and they really missed their quarterback during their bowl game. All I'm saying there with that one, but it was not pretty. Right, there's a few more left. So another worthy winner this year, the Valero Alamo Bowl. I mean, what a season for Arizona, right? We talk about them every week. This was a game of thirds. They took a 13-0 lead with 13 minutes left in the second quarter. Then Oklahoma had a run of 24 points in a row, unanswered, to go up 24-13. But then you had the big play where, just as it looked like it was getting away from them, this was right at the end of the third quarter, Gunnar Maldonado had an 87-yard fumble return whilst Oklahoma were threatening to score again and put this one out. And that then led, because they got a 2-point conversion as well, three unanswered scores for Arizona in the fourth quarter, where Oklahoma just went back to sleep, and they ended up winning it 38-24. It looked quite convincing. The legend of Noah Fifita continues to grow. 24 of 38, 354 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did have a pick which spoiled his day, but I mean, for a team that Oklahoma had 660 yards of offense in this, Arizona had 406. You wouldn't know. Arizona just find a way, bend but don't break defense. And even when they had that really bad run during this where it looked like it had all gone, one play and it snapped them in. Arizona, one of the best seasons of anybody this year, really, Rye.
Yeah, I circled this ball game when it came out as like, that's going to be fun. Like I said, Jeff Fisher should have been in the conversation for Coach of the Year. This is why you pick it after it's all happened. Because he was up there, like you say, he's led them to historic program season with basically a backup quarterback. They've gone out and been like the best team in the state of Arizona, one of the best teams in the country, one of the funnest to watch. And yeah, they gave up all that yardage, but not many points, because in the red zone, they're really good at defending the red zone and the end zone, like I say, and that is how they win games. Their offense can absolutely lay waste to you, but also in the end zone, they can keep you out and they can hold you at 3. Even if you want to rag on them inside like the 20s, like that's fine by them. And realistically, the Wildcats, they should be expecting to go to the Big 12 and try to win it. There's no reason they cannot be competitive and try to win the Big 12, I say, coming off this year, because they've not really lost anyone. Not really lost any big names, like, say, to the portal or to the draft. I know James Delore has left, but the guy lost his job and he wasn't winning it back. He realised that. And like I say, he's quite an interesting quarterback, because he was pretty good in periods before that. But yeah, right, this is Noah Fifita's team now. Like, no one's taking that away from him. And Jeff Fisher is a great coach. There's some proper good talent on his team. And Oklahoma, like, we've seen this story before, haven't we? Like you say, where offense can just lay waste to teams. Defense, optional, or they just never played in the time. And yeah, they just went to sleep for large periods, and they were really frustrating. And in the end, the Sooners, they kind of got what they deserved now, because that's just what they do. And DG's gone. Like I say, is it with Jackson Arnold next year? Quarterback?
Possibly, yeah. I think that would be the plan.
5-star, but yeah, like, they now need to find a solution.
That would be the plan. I guess there's still guys going in the portal, so you never know who might sort of pop up in there.
They're a team now that they've got questions to ask.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You need to find someone who's going to be right for your team, who's going to be quite big in there. So I don't know. You still make a run at Will Howard, you'd figure, as well. You would love to keep him in the division. He'd do really well there, and he's got more visits planned, so maybe he does. Right. We're going to go through this by day now, because I didn't realize just how far we were behind. But the 29th of December saw the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, which Clemson won 38-35 against Kentucky in a barnstormer, one of the best bowl games, the lot of them there. The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, Notre Dame whipped Oregon State 40-8, but Oregon State are all kinds of over the place at the minute. The AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Memphis won 36-26 against Iowa State, not negating a wonderful performance from Rocco Becht, who threw for about 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. The man is legit. And in the Goodyear Cotton Classic Bowl, Eli Drinkwitz and Missouri got one over on Ohio State, 14-3. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't great. And Missouri didn't score a point till the last quarter when they got their 2 touchdowns. But Some big wins in there. Missouri's probably the biggest of them all.
Yeah, this stretch of games was really good. So Kentucky Clemson, it was basically Phil Maffer versus Barry on Brown. Like I said, those two went wild. Barry on Brown had a return touchdown. He had a receiving touchdown. I think he had 2 receiving touchdowns, a return touchdown. Phil Maffer ran wild. Like I say, Will Shipley did really well until he got hurt. Both defenses got lit up. Like I said, offensive, that was a juggernaut. That was a really fun game to watch. And then the other side where Missouri beat State, it was not good. Both defenses did a great job of nullifying both offenses, but Ohio State didn't really have any offense to nullify. It just took Missouri, like I say, they kind of just chipped away, and in the end, Luther Burden got free, scores a touchdown, and that kind of extinguished any kind of hope that Ohio State had when Burden goes in for that touchdown. Brady Cook was good, but didn't really have to do a lot. Like I say, that was, Drinkwitz, like I say, he can hold his head high, like I say. Not the best performance, but a big scalp. Like I say, to take a win against Ohio State in a bowl game is never easy, even if it's just like a depleted Buckeyes. But caps off a historic season. The Tigers are back next year. I want to see them in contention to win the SEC. Ohio State, they've got a lot of rebuilding and retooling to do. Like I say, and they are licking their wounds after this year. But this stretch of games, like I say, just super fun and so much draft talent on show.
Yeah, it like at one point the Clemson Kentucky game was turnover touchdown, like 60-yarder from Will Shipley, who injured himself on that. It was just here, there, and everywhere and all over the place. And it's what a ball game should be. Lots of talent on there for sure. Missouri, I mean, they've got 2 first-round potential cornerbacks. I know I love Abrams Train, but the other one's garnering first-round attention now as well, which is crazy. So they got some, and Burden staying there has restored my faith in humanity. Like, I thought he'd move. He's that good. He could go to any program in the country, but the fact he's staying there is great for them. Cody Schrader's coming to the draft. Now, I'm really intrigued to see where he goes. I think he's one of the best running backs in this class, and I think he's so underrated, but I don't know where he's going to go, but we will see with that one. The next day we have up the 30th of December, so we had the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Ole Miss beating Penn State 38-25. The Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl, Maryland beating Auburn 31-13. The Capital One Orange Bowl, Georgia with the biggest win of the lot, 63-3 over Florida State. And then you had the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, Wyoming with a walk-off field goal, 16-15 winners there. But some individually impressive performances in this one, right? Quishon Junkins, Trey Harris, that Ole Miss offense that we know it can be sort of shredded the Nittany Lions. And I mean, next year's the year for Ole Miss, isn't it? Because they've had a sleuth of great transfer pickups on the defense. You know, the offense has got the parts there. And this is an Ole Miss team that went and beat Auburn during the season. You know, they can come down and beat some good teams. But this is what they need to be.
Kiffin next year.
No.
He's just got that extension a month ago, another, so he's now through contract for to 2028. And first a 11-win season, a couple of years, a bowl win, a great year. That won't be good enough next year, I fear. I feel like it's an SEC title game or bust. They won't fire him. They can't afford to fire him. They've given him an extension, so firing has not a problem. But he won't continue to reload with all this talent if it don't click. You don't go out there and get guys like Prince, Man Malin, and all this stack of talent if you can't put it together. And like I said, I'm not Jackson Dart's biggest fan, but the fact is, he finds ways to win games. Their receiving call, like I say, with Treehouse guys, it was stacked this year. Their run game, their all-line, the defense. It's a team that should be competing for national championships, not playing in crappy ball games. Penn State on the side, they weren't very good. And then other games like Auburn, that's one of the worst performances I've seen of bowl season. They got absolutely rinsed by Maryland. And Maryland, phony. It was ugly. It was
Yeah.
just not good at all. Peyton Thorne, he blows. The
Yeah.
Hunt's a good back, but he can't carry that team. It's going nowhere. Georgia game, I'm not going to talk about it. Like I say, it felt unfair. Like I say, Florida State, they were basically, it was men v boys. When you look at like 13 starters that were missing because they were injured, they'd hit the portal, they're going to draft. They were missing everyone. Didn't even have, like I said, their backup quarterback, Rodemaker, hit the portal. Glenn, he's nowhere near ready to be starting football games just yet.
No.
So yeah, that game, huge asterisks, and it was not enjoyable to watch at all. And then, yeah, like I say, it was a crazy period.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then, yeah, Wyoming, I didn't pick them, but yeah, they got it done in the most dramatic fashion they could.
Yeah, they did, and they're another to watch out for next year. They've had a decent year, not up to their standards, but they kind of ended it well. So we'll see where they go there. And then the last slate we have before we get to the playoff games, because it feels like we've been going a while. 1st of January, the ReliaQuest Bowl. LSU beat Wisconsin 35-31, maybe much closer than people anticipated. What wasn't close was the Group of Fives representative in the New Year's Six Bowl, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Oregon absolutely trouncing the floor with Liberty 45-36. And a team who actually got shut out on the day. Is it any surprise? The Iowa Hawkeyes and the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Tennessee beating them 35-0. Now, a few storylines here, right? Obviously, Wisconsin, this was a really good performance from them. I think people expected LSU to walk over them because they've still got Garrett Nussmeier. And I mean, Nussmeier threw for like 420 yards or something. He had a load of touchdowns. Their offense didn't miss a beat. Tanner Mordecai had a Tanner Mordecai performance. He also threw for like 400 yards. It was vintage offensive performances on both sides of the ball, but they just couldn't make enough stops on defense. But I think they'd be very happy with that. That LSU team, even without Jaden Daniels, is pretty damn good. And then they stood up to them.
Unfortunately, it was vintage Tanner Mordecai
From
that
the pick.
fumbled the game away. He also fumbled the game to lose on 4th down, like say, like that was so him. He's always got a big mistake in him. But yeah, Wisconsin, without Braylon Allen, the backup running back, I know it begins with a C. He looks really good. The guy that broke his leg.
Oh, Jackson Acker. Oh no, Ches Malusia didn't play in it. It was Cage Yakameli and Jackson Acker in this one.
Yeah, like I said, they've got a good group of running backs.
Yeah.
Next year they're starting to get in a position. And receiver, yeah, tight ends, they're getting better. Like I said, they're not known for passing the ball, but yeah, their defense, like I say, I was very impressed by Wisconsin. Like I said, I thought they will get dusted. So I'd say, yeah, LSU can't play Brian Thomas Jr. That kid looks like a potential star.
Oh god, yeah.
Harold Perkins, he had a rushing touchdown. They mixed it up, didn't they? Like they got fun. That was quite a fun game. And then, yeah, I enjoyed a lot of this. And then, yeah, Oregon's offense, we know what it is. Oregon's defense, we also know what it is. Liberty went out there, they lost, but they went down, like I say, trying. They scored some points, like I say. So yeah, that was quite a good performance. Plucky. Keen slaughtered last game as well. Thought that. So yeah, he went out on top.
Yeah, and then to round it off, obviously we saw for the first time Nico Iamaleava, the new Tennessee quarterback of the future, ranked number 2 behind Arch Manning, if I'm right, this year's quarterback class. He was the second guy. I mean, I know they shut him out, but he got sacked like 7 times in this, but didn't turn the ball over. Looked pretty good. Only had about 160 yards, but that Tennessee rushing attack did what it needed to. Got points, and despite getting pressured all over the place, looks solid. Looks like he could be a good acquisition for them next year if he sort of hits the ground running.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to judge, like I say, against obviously a team that was way out of its depth. But yeah,
The Iowa defense is not. The offense is.
The defense, like I say, it did well to contain him, and stem the bleed.
Yeah.
Like I said, offense rank. But yeah, like I say, the lad is he's like 6'6", he's like 230, 240. The guy is a physical specimen for a quarterback. So yeah, I think people think he's going to be a star. And you see the flashes. He's got the big arm, he's got the big frame. He's quite elusive as well for quite a lanky kid. I say, yeah. So yeah, Tennessee again next year. Let's see if they can live up to the hype, especially with the new center. And Iowa, just awful. Dax Hill was terrible. The backup was no better. No run game. All the best defenders basically said we're not going to enter the game anyway because we're going to the draft.
I mean, but how much must it suck? Like, let's say most of the starters, a lot of them are going to the draft and didn't go, but then the backups come in, still register 7 sacks in the game, and they absolutely play their hearts out. They're on the field, obviously, for a long time, as always. And you're like, you can't get some points. They're still putting up great performances. They don't deserve this, do they? I mean, if you're a guy going there, you think, well, it's great for my draft stock because I can show out every week, but there must be a time when you just go enough is enough with it.
Yeah, they went out there and they got battered and bruised. The defense and the offense couldn't muster a bean. And now with the Big Ten, obviously the shift now, a title game is probably totally out of reach as well. So realistically now, I love the Hawkeyes. Why do I go to Iowa when I don't even have a path to a Big Ten championship anymore?
No, and why don't they have a path to a Big Ten championship anymore? Because there's a big dog in the Big Ten now, and they ain't letting go of their crown, which of course means we're on to the college football playoff semi-finals, which took place this weekend, and 2 big games. The first of them,
3 different games.
yeah.
Well.
And I actually went back and listened to our we talked about this at the start of December, and you sort of nailed it on. You're like, the Sugar Bowl's going to be the fun, explosive, offensive game, and the Alabama-Michigan game's going to be the real nitty-gritty one where, little bits decide on there. It's not going to be as aesthetically pleasing, which it wasn't, and you kind of got it bang on with this. But the Rose Bowl and the Michigan Wolverines finally overcoming their hoodoo after losing to Georgia 2 years ago, after getting beaten by TCU last year, which was a backbreaker. 27-20 victors over the Alabama Crimson Tide, courtesy of a great run from Blake Corum in overtime, which sealed it for them. But I mean, it was an error-prone game to start with. JJ threw that terrible pick. Milroe looked like he got stage fright because it's the biggest game he's played in. And then it kind of settled down. The team started trading blows, going backwards and forwards. And then you're thinking after halftime, Alabama come out. And Alabama's special teams were sensational in this game. It kept them in this game. Because Michigan's special teams was horrendous and they nearly chucked it away with that. And just when you think you've got all the momentum together, Milroe turns it over, fumbles the ball, turns around, touchdown, Michigan, gets to overtime, and then Michigan just roll it in after 2 plays. All it takes is 2 runs from Blake Corum. It's in. Alabama get it all the way to the 3. And then this is where I think Nick Saban and his dynasty's dying. They try the quarterback sneak up the gut against Michigan. For 60 minutes, they had been trying to run up the gut against Michigan and got the square root of nothing. And I don't think he even made the line of scrimmage getting back there. And Michigan closed this one out. But this was the one for the pure aesthetics, wasn't it, right? It was brutal. It was bruising. It came down to special teams. But Michigan finally sort of asserting their dominance and showing who the big dog is now in college football.
This game came down to 2 words: offensive line. Michigan, their offensive line, it nullified Dallas Turner. It nullified the rushers. They got they all playing the backfield from safeties, coming in linebackers. Like I said, they held their own and they kept JJ McCarthy up and they made holes for Blake Corum. The Alabama offensive line, it was non-existent. Jalen Milroe, His running style is awful. His ball security is terrible, but it also doesn't help that he has got no time in the pocket because it kept crumbling and he just had to keep escaping. Jace McClellan had a fantastic game, and all the runs seemed like they were broken plays, like bouncing to the outside. He was the reason, like I said, they were in overtime, him and Will Riker. But yeah, like I said, the line, the trench warfare from Michigan, it just overpowered Alabama. It stopped everything they wanted to do. Like I said, that final set kind of summed it up. That they thought it's not worked all game. Let's just try run up the middle. A couple of times, and it all failed. Like I said, there was some dodge. Like I said, JJ got, like I said, the early scare of the turnover that came back because he was out of bounds, and that kind of woke him up from then because he never put the ball in harm's way again. Whereas Milroe, the throws were shaky, the runs, like I said, the fumble where he gets stripped. I think it's by Will Johnson because he's carrying the baby like a loaf of bread.
And he's carrying it to the defender, not away from it.
He changes his hands, doesn't he, when he's running? And he carries it on the inside. He's running to the sideline. The ball has to be on the sideline. Like they're mental errors. Jalen Milroe did not look ready. I think he can still be like a Heisman winner, but I saw all the flaws of quarterback that was just not ready for this game at all. And Michigan, very worthy winners in the end. Like I said, their defense, is it Fainborough still? Like I said, the cornerback. Like I said, Johnson, the defensive backs, the safeties. Like I said, they were coming down, they were hitting, they were stopping short, they were physical. Alabama secondary, it lacked that physicality. They were not tough. They were not bringing guys down. Yeah, I was super impressed by the Wolverines.
Like you say, it's the trench warfare aspect, which is weird because Alabama have been like the trench gods of years. Think how many linemen they send to the draft on both sides of the ball. But in recent years, when they've started to struggle, like all the old linemen they've been sending have been day 3 guys, like day 2 guys. They're not high level, apart from Evan Neal, obviously, but even he's not really translated that well to the NFL. But what I was so impressed with was how the Michigan DC was scheming the blitzers. Like they had no answer. They had no idea with the movement where the pressure was coming from, which is where all the sacks came from. There was 6 of them compared to Alabama's 1. They said Dallas Turner may as well have been a spectator in this one. I had a couple of rushing tackles for loss, but that was it. But it was that use of motion and surprise, and that's where Nick Saban's not evolved, isn't it? He's still stuck in his ways. He will run it up the gut until he breaks you, which you can't do against this Michigan team. They couldn't. Like I said, Jace McClellan had to make some big plays on his own. But I give big props to that Michigan DC for what he did. They just didn't look like they could handle it, did they?
No, I think the linebackers for Michigan had 3 of the sacks, which says a lot. They were designed blitzes. They were stunts. They were late. They came up, dropped into coverage, blitzed, or they showed coverage, like say, and then came down. And Milroe, he's got the ability to be a escape artist. He can get out. He can make magic with the toes, but he had no idea it was coming. Half the time it was from the blind side. And the Alabamas, the running backs as well, bad day picking up the blitz. They did not have a clue what was going on. Like I said, they did not know which gaps someone was coming through. So yeah, it was a really rough day trying to protect him and keep him upright. And in the end, yeah, it just killed too many drives. And there were too many field goals. I am glad that I put Will Rijkaard in my mock draft a month ago. Because like I said, he looks like
he's clutch.
He's an NFL kicker already. He's making 50-yard field goals.
Like the chips.
With no pressure.
Yeah. Like, you're there thinking at the end of the game, all it's going to take is for Bama to get into field goal range. Like, you've got to get to the 40, and that's like, no. You've got to get close. It's like, nope. Get to the 40, he'll hit it in. And they just look so effortless. They don't move in the air. It's just like he attaches them to a line in a straight line, and they just go. He is a great talent. He's going to get picked up very early by somebody. But yeah, for Michigan...
Overall, great performance from the Wolverines.
Yeah.
They exposed all the flaws that Alabama have got.
Does it not feel like...
I still think Alabama were right to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
I still think, from what I saw from the 2 games, the 4 teams that I said would be there, I felt justified for putting them there as well. Like, 2 matchups that offered the best of what I wanted to see.
Oh yeah, if you take Milrose fumble out of the equation, that's a Bama win. Because I think there's what, like 4:30 left at that point, and the momentum's all on Bama's side, and they will go down and get another touchdown at that point, or at least get points to make it a two-score game. So it's that's where it changed on that one play. It was boneheaded. But for me, it feels like Saban, he's just too old school now. Like they're falling behind. Michigan were a lot more innovative with how they did. You can't just run it up the gut no more. You ain't got the offensive line to do it. You've got to start moving the pocket. You've got to start getting creative, and he didn't. So, but well done, Michigan. Terrific for them. And that means that they are going to have a final against the Sugar Bowl winners, the Washington Huskies. It's going to be number one versus number two. And this, like, for as defensive and as hard hitting and everything as the Rose Bowl was, the Sugar Bowl was all out offensive warfare. We know what Quinn Ewers can do. We know what Michael Penix can do, and they didn't let us down in this. 430 yards through the air for Penix Jr., 29 of 38. He had 2 touchdowns in on that. Quinn Ewers had 320 yards, 24 of 43. He had a touchdown himself, but in terms of the game itself, it was all over the place. Dylan Johnson on the ground, touchdown to start it off for Washington. Jaden Blue responds with his own touchdown run for Texas. So it's 7-all. Washington go back in front again. Dylan Johnson for the second time, 1-yard run, just putting it right on the goal line, basically, and letting him running it in there. Texas respond again. Byron Murphy, a 1-yard run. Byron Murphy the second, so it's 14-all. Then Jalen Polk with a 29-yard touchdown pass from Michael Penix Jr. With 1:27 left in the first half, makes it 21-14 to Washington. But in 80 seconds, 70 seconds, sorry, Texas get all the way back down, 17 seconds left in the half. CJ Baxter runs it in from 3 yards out. So it's 21-all at the break. It's just basically the teams trading points with Washington been in front. But then the third quarter happens, which is when Washington start to pull it away. Jalen McMillan, a 19-yard pass from Michael Penix Jr. Grady Ghost got the kick from that. Then Gross kicks 2 field goals from 26 and 40. This is going into the fourth, so it's 34-21 to Texas. But Texas are not done. Adonai Mitchell, really good catch in the corner of the end zone from a yard out from Quinn Ewers, brings it back to a 6-point game. Grady Gross gets another field goal with 2 minutes left, so it's 28-37 in Washington's favor. And then Texas have to start running quickly. They get the field goal from Brett Oburn for 25 yards with 1:09 left. But they have a drive left at the end of the game. They still get the ball back. 2 massive completions downfield. The second one, like the guy toe taps.
Jordan Waiton, the catch.
It was, oh my God. I was there like, there's no way he's caught that. Gets them into range in the red zone to go and get the win over Washington. But once again, Washington's defense, when it needs to, comes up with the stop. And I say this with the most sincerity in the world. This is the most average clutch defense I've ever seen in my life, Ryan. They are not a good defense. They give up a lot of points, but every single time you need them to make a stop or a pick or change a game around, they somehow do it after being average all game. But this was a spectacle and a half. The atmosphere was tremendous. The Texas fans were there in numbers. Crazy offense, weird defense, right down to the 4th down play at the end. Sugar Bowl lived up to expectation and showed these two teams were worthy of being there.
Yeah, this was just, if anyone likes wide receivers, like I say, you have, like I say, you had Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and then you've got the best, for me, you've got the best trio, one of the best trios I've ever seen. They complement each other so well. They're explosive, but they're reliable. Penix can shut his eyes and just go off timing and go, I know they're going to be there where they should be. Polk, McMillan, and Odunze have dominated everyone they've come up against. There is no way you can cover them for that long. Like I said, the deep ball to Roma Dunze that literally the defender just flat out, and it just goes past his fingers, like I say, and he just drops it in the bucket. It was a thing of beauty. Like I said, these were just, but yeah, like I say, it was, like I say, their defenses, like the secondaries, like they weren't even a hole in their own. They were just flat out. They were just getting shredded for the best part. Like they really did struggle. There was not much pressure on either quarterback. There weren't many sacks. Like this was just a, I'm going to outscore you. And in the end, Texas, yeah, they left it a little, just too little, too late. They had too much to do with too little time left. And even though they almost pulled out the bag, it kind of just felt like Washington, like say, were just going to guard the goal line. Like say, you just will not enter. We will let you get down here, but we just will not let you win. And yeah, that was what I expected. Like I say, Quinn Ewers, yeah, losing side, had a good game. Could have done a lot more. Like I say, he made some fantastic throws. Receivers made some great catches. They probably ran the ball better as well. Blue and like I say, but like I say, they had a good game, reasonably on the ground. Like I say, Texas.
190 yards.
Yeah, so they
So
couldn't have done a lot more. It was
no,
just like just unguardable defense, and like I say, it was just they ran out of time in the end. And yeah, the atmosphere was great. Like I say, it's a long way to travel for both sets of fans, but they packed out the stadium. And for me, I just enjoyed this game more because it was just more of a spectacle. But the
yeah.
other game, like you say, was tough and physical. And this is where I have the problems with the Washingtons and the Texans. They don't match up well against the Michigans, which is why this national title game is going to be so intriguing. One team wants to pass the ball, one team wants to run the ball.
Yeah. And, but now Washington do have that sort of little crease in the offense that they do have Dylan Johnson.
But
I
he
mean,
got hurt right at the end of
yeah,
the game. He didn't finish the game, did he? He got injured.
no.
He did
And
not get back up. So
that could be huge because he only had 50 yards in this, but he got the two. He's there to convert in the red zone instead of passing it. Because with all Michigan's great secondary who ball hawk this, the best way is to try and run it in to keep the ball safe. And if they don't have him, they're going to have issues. But quickly back to Penix. You mentioned the one throw, the one he dropped in the bucket to Adunze. But what about the McMillan one? That reminded me of Stafford when he hits him in the end zone. He's got the guy coming across with the trailing defender, but then he's got another guy trying to cut it off,
like
and he
right through the
sticks
middle,
it.
doesn't he?
He bisects it like perfectly. That is, I thought Stafford when I saw that. I don't get the lack of love for him in the draft. He makes NFL throws every week, and people might go, well, friendly system he plays in, but I think out of all the college friendly systems, like his is translatable. He's got good receivers, but he makes some hella good throws, and ones like that, he's worthy of getting picked high, isn't he?
I look past the age and the injuries, and I would take him in the first round.
Yeah.
I have Bo Nix, I have Penix, I have Drake May, I have Jane Daniels second, and then Kit Likes Killers. I've got 5 first round quarterbacks. I would see no issue whatsoever in taking Michael Penix in the
No,
first round.
no. I
I
think
think, like I said, he will be a fast learner.
he will fit right into an NFL team. I think he'd start straight away. I do. You give him some good
I
shifty
find
receivers to
Ryan
work
Petty
with.
Jr. has a far better pro career than someone like Drake May.
Yeah, and because they're just getting overlooked. But you look at the throws he makes in this game, and it was just absolutely tremendous. And they say they were running the ball tough, they were throwing through the air. It just had all the pageantry you wanted from this. So I absolutely loved it. It was a great game, and we're left with the one versus the two seed, which kind of you want in the end. Your two highest ranked teams who are going to be playing against one another. So let me just get the bits up here for the guys. But I mean, let's talk about it. So Washington versus Michigan is going to be the Nattie this weekend. Michigan favored by about 5, I believe, in this one. So, of course, everyone's betting on. And like I said, the styles don't match in there. And it's going to come down to two very different teams. So let's talk Washington first. We know who they are. Michael Penix is throwing at 67% completion this year. He's got 4,648 yards, 35 touchdowns to just 9 picks. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns as well, although he doesn't run the ball at all. Depending on the injury situation, they've got a 1,000-yard rusher in Dylan Johnson, 1,162 yards, 16 touchdowns. Also is used as a receiver as well. But then, like you said, you've got the Trinity at receiver. You've got Jalen Polk, 1,122 yards, 9 touchdowns. Roma Dunze, 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, the backup, 526 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jack Westover, the tight end, gets used a lot. He's 391 yards, 4 touchdowns on there. And you say, we know how Washington like to play. This is an offense which is just explosive in every facet of the word. But having Johnson is going to be critical for them in this one, because without him, if Michigan can stop you running the ball and they get you putting it airborne, they're going to pick it a lot of times, aren't they?
Yeah, this is what it comes down to. Like, can the Washington O-line give Michael Penix Jr. long enough to get, like I say, can they create a pocket for him? Because Alabama's couldn't. Like I said, Penix Jr. works like he's the best quarterback in the nation in a clean pocket. When he goes through his progressions, probably got the prettiest ball in football. If they can hurry him, like I say, and with the secondary, like I say, they can take the ball away, there will be turnovers. If they can get in passing lanes, if they can interrupt him mid-pass, there will be 1 or 2 interceptions. This will be the sternest test this Michigan secondary probably will have faced for years. Like I said, this trio, like I said, and the tight ends that can work underneath. Can they cover them long enough? They're going to break off some big plays. Can they stem the flow? Can they stop the bleed? Can they stop them in the red zone? Like I say, it's going to be that kind of game where they trade blows. The team that turns the ball over first and like falls like 1 score behind could be game over. On the flip side, like I say, can Braylon Trice, like I say, on the other side, can they get pressure? Can they keep Blake Corum in the pocket? Can they make him bounce outside? Because the Michigan O-line, if they do part like the Red Sea, like we saw the massive holes, it's game over for Washington. Because I don't think they're that good. They're not good tacklers, I don't think, on the back end.
Oh, no.
I don't think they're one of. Like I say, Blake Corum's a little muscle shark. He's hard to bring down. I don't trust the secondary of Washington to tackle him in the open field.
So
that is their worst nightmare. So that Washington D-line has got to contain them. That's where it comes down to for me.
Yeah, you mentioned it there. So Braylon Trice is the guy there at edge. He's going to be a high draft pick. So he's at 46 tackles, 11.5 for a loss, 7 sacks, 2 passes defended, forced fumble on the year, backed up by, and I've completely forgotten about him. I had him in my mock draft 2 years ago, but Edefwan Olafosio, the linebacker, he's an outside linebacker now, had loads of injury issues. He's had a full season. He's got 90 tackles, 8 for a loss, 3 sacks, an interception, 2 passes defended, forced fumble. He's actually got a return touchdown as well, pick 6 on there. And then you get into the secondary and you've got individually talented guys. Jabbar Muhammad, the one who got the really unfair DPI call against Oregon, which nearly cost them that game. But he's at 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, 15 passes defended on the season. He's got a fumble recovery as well. You've got Dominique Hampton, the safety, 6 passes defended as well. You've individually, like, you've got talented players in here. And the one thing we've said about this defense all year, they're not great, but you think back to the Oregon game, the turnover just before halftime in that high score of the first one, which got Washington the right side of scoring first rather than scoring last, which won them the game. Against Oregon State, when they didn't perform well on offense, it stood up. In this game against Texas, they were getting rinsed on that last drive, but then when they got to the red zone, they didn't break. It's a unit which somehow always finds a way to do it, but it does feel like the big playmakers, those 3 especially, are going to have to come up for this game.
Yeah. Even with Dylan Johnson, I just can't see Washington winning this game just by running the ball. Michigan, JJ McCarthy doesn't turn the ball over because there's an offense that's balanced. JJ McCarthy could win this national championship without throwing a passing touchdown. I believe that. Penix Jr. could not, because Dylan Johnson will not be able to take over a game, and because that Washington O-line will not give and create the holes for Dylan Johnson. He'll have to do it himself because the Michigan D-line is just not going to allow it. Right, so for me, yeah, if JJ McCarthy plays a totally clean game and Blake Corum finds holes and that, like, it's going to be a case of Penix Jr. is going to have to go hell for leather. And that's where, like, say, someone like, say, Denver Still, he could end up with 2 interceptions. And like I say, it could really ruin the game for Washington. Penix Jr. cannot turn the ball over. That means the receivers have to be perfect. No tipped balls, no batted passes. Like, it's going to have to be a turnover-free game from Washington for me. I think Michigan, yeah, on paper, I'd probably make them favourites.
I think Washington, yeah, I do think the Washington receivers are some of the best at ball security, though. I don't feel like we ever criticize them for ball security issues. They are,
Michigan receivers are okay, but
there
they
are
don't
issues, yeah.
anywhere else. So, like Ron Wilson, good guy, but no, they're just not in the same league.
So yeah, this is how Michigan matches up stats-wise. JJ McCarthy's throwing 73%, 2,851 yards, 22 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. Like you said, doesn't turn the ball over. The running game, Blake Corum, 1,111 yards, 25 touchdowns. He's got 117 yards and a touchdown through the air as well. I think they said that receiving touchdown he had in the game just gone was his first one all season. Maybe one of the only ones he's ever had. It's very rare, but he did get one then. Donovan Edwards, massive letdown though. He was meant to be the second guy behind him. He's running at 3.5 yards per carry, only has 393 yards on 113 attempts and just 3 touchdowns. They use him a bit more in the air. He's 250 yards, but nothing going there. In terms of receivers, Roman Wilson's the guy, 735 yards, 12 touchdowns. But then after that, receiving-wise, the next guy has only got 4. So that's Colston Loveland, 585, 4 touchdowns. They spread them out a little bit over there, but generally, touchdowns come on the ground for this team. On the defense, I mean, you just know how good they're one of the top-ranked defenses in the nation. They've got one of the best run defenses in the nation. You have guys all over the place. Chris Jenkins, who I have mocked to the Lions this upcoming year. He's one of the best run stuff in DTs in the game. We've already mentioned Mike Sainra still. 5 interceptions for him. Two touchdowns. He'd probably be Iowa's leading receiver this year with the amount of touchdowns. He's had 2 forced fumbles, 6 passes defender. Josh Wallace has performed really good. The corner transfer they got from UMass. And then that's before even taking other guys into account. We've mentioned like Will Johnson. It's a team based on power, isn't it? Right, both sides of the ball, dominant trench warfare with skilled position players around it. The only weakness you would maybe say is in the passing game if they keep Blake Corum a little quiet and Roman Wilson a little quiet. Behind that, there's not a ton of game changers there, so that's where their weakness is. But if you're strong in the trenches, you're very hard to beat.
The key is Michigan, for me, they're not explosive enough to come from like multiple scores down, because that means then you're having to throw 30, 40, 50-yard passes. I say Washington can do that. If Washington jump out to a healthy lead, you kind of got to abandon the run game. And Michigan never really have to abandon the run game. So that is kind of key. So yeah, like I said, they cannot afford to fall behind. On the plus side, Washington, if they fall far behind and they have to go more aggressive, they're in trouble because Michigan will control the time of possession. I expect Michigan to control that because they'll run the ball. Also, like I said, they've got guys that can take away the ball. So yeah, like I said, that there can be errors forced. So yeah, the team that jumps out, like I said, the team gets a 2-score lead. For me, it's probably over for the other team. They're not built to come from behind because one doesn't like to throw the ball deep and the other does push their luck sometimes too much.
Yeah. I think for Washington, you've got to play a turnover-free game, like you said, and you've got to try and keep them off the field. You've got to try and wear that defense down, but you've got to be smart. And they do use motion a lot, so you can get away from that fearsome Michigan interior, but it's easier said than done. And then defensively, you've just got to give your best effort of the year. Braylon Trice needs to have the game of his career. those guys in the secondary need to be ready to pick off anything that, McCarthy will throw their way. You've got to find ways to get turnovers. They need to play a turnover-free game, and they need to get turnovers. There's a lot there for Michigan. I think you just have to play how you played. As like I said, get out to a 10-point lead, double score lead. You're kind of hosed otherwise. You're there. Because as you said, when you have to start throwing the ball all the time, you get into a lot of 2nd and 10s, 3rd and 10s, where you dial up the pressure. And Michigan love being in that situation. Absolutely love it. And I don't know whether Washington can deal with it. So overall, what do you reckon the score is going to be and who's going to win it?
27-24 Michigan. And I think they win because I think Penix gets harassed. Sacks and the odd interception.
Oh, I actually quite like
I
that.
want Michigan to win. I'll say that now. Oh no, I want Washington to win. I want Washington to win, but I think Michigan win. I think this is a bad matchup stylistically for Washington.
It is, and agree. I do want Michigan, not because I'm anti-Michigan for what anyone who listens to this knows I am fully Washington, and I have been all year. I love Washington as a team, and I did back them to get all this way. So I would love them to win, but Michigan just look like they're on a mission this year and no one can stop them. And the last question was, could they beat a big team like Alabama? And they did it from behind as well in a game situation which wasn't looking too cozy. I think that answers any questions you need about them. I think this is going to be 35-27 to Michigan. As much as I hate to say it, I agree. If they get scores early, Washington's going to turn it over and the defense ain't going to be able to keep them out. So we've got a Michigan sweep there, but we will see. And we will let you know how it goes on next week. Before we get on out of here today, though, there is one other championship game that we need to discuss, right? Because there isn't just the FBS, there's the FCS championship game this week coming up as well. And I found it was I went back to our first show that we did, the first week we ever did like an actual week of college football when there were games played, and we started doing reviews on it. And there was one game that happened on that weekend, on the first ever show we did during game weekend, when the Montana Grizzlies beat the Washington Huskies 13-7 in Washington for their first win there in like 97 years. And then full circle, a couple of years later, we've been doing this now. And both teams are fighting for national championships. Washington in the FBS, the Grizzlies in the FCS, but they're coming up against the dominant power there, South Dakota State, who are perfect on the season. Montana have one loss. Obviously, you follow the FCS a lot more here, but what's the keys for both teams going into this weekend? And more importantly, are you still, after all this time, going to stick with the Grizz to the end?
Well, this is another game where it's 1v2. This game is difficult because you look at say the Jackrabbits and they have just everything they've put in front of them. Most of it, they've breezed through it. They've got a couple of shutouts already in the postseason. That's unheard of. And for me, like I said, it starts with their offense. Like I said, they've got the Yonke brothers, Jackson and Jaden, the twin brothers. Collectively, on a day, they can be a nightmare for a secondary. They've had historic careers. They're going to the draft. They've won a national title. They know how to win. They want to win it again. Montana, I'd say, the sleeping giant, they've woken back up again. They've had a fantastic year. They took down Montana State. Like I say, they beat NDSU to get here in a thriller. Like I say, they've had a gauntlet. They've not won all their games convincingly. Like I say, but they've done it through a style of good defense, good run, good passing. SDSU have been like, we're going to go in there, we're going to blow the shit out of you, and we're going to blitz you. And that's what they did to Albany. They absolutely fisted them in every phase of the game. So yeah, it is basically, it's like David v Goliath if you look at their paths here. And yeah, on paper, like I say, Jarrett's probably comfortable favourites, and rightly so, because like I say, undefeated, and they've not really been tested many times this year. And you look at how good their offense is, like I say, and their quarterback, like I say, that's a great dual threat. Montana State, like I say, but they've also got a good dual threat quarterback, can do it through the air, but wants to do it with his legs. Both quarterbacks like to do it with their legs. These two teams, they want to run the ball, and they want to run it quite heavily. I still think the Grizz can and will win. I think for that to happen, though, they've got to do what no one else has done. They've got to force turnovers. This needs to be a low scorer. They've got to make it ugly. They ain't winning a shootout. They just dropped 50 of 59 on Albany in SDSU. Like I said, the Grizz are not winning a shootout. Like I said, they need to force fumbles. They need to get interceptions. They have to have a good day on special teams. Their kick coverage and that has got to be solid. Like I say, watertight. Like I say, and if this is kind of like a 21-20 game, Grizz will win that. But if you're asking the Grizz to like go out there and like, can you keep pace with us because we're going to score 40 plus? It's probably not going to happen because I just don't think they've got enough firepower. But yeah, this one is going to be really interesting. Like I say, because this is kind of game where they could get out of sight the Jackrabbits really quickly. If they get like 2-3 scores up, like going into the half, it's sayonara. It's game over. But if it's level in the half or like level coming out of the half, like they like I say, the Grizz will grow in confidence, and they've shown, like I say, that especially like I say on like big key red zone players, like I say, NSU, like I say, forcing converting 2-point conversions, stopping 2-point conversions, being in the red zone. That's where the game is won. It's field goals, not touchdowns. You don't get into a shootout. Like I say, you keep it tight. You keep it on the ground, not through the air, and you try force mistakes.
So, what score do you reckon?
For the Grizz, like something like 23-20, like something like that. I could be wrong, it'll be like 44-10. I fully expect, like I said, I'll say that, like I said, they'll go out and they'll drop like 45 on them, and it'll just be a pace thing. But yeah, the Grizz, like I said, if they can get a few turnovers, force out fumble, a low score is probably what they want.
I like it. Stick with them till the absolute end. You get your guys and you go with them. Love it. So, yeah, we've got the 2 championship games coming up this weekend, and we will let you know what happens next week. So, yeah, that is everything for us this week. We'll do more portal bits and that in the future because there's still loads going on at the minute, and we've been going on for ages today. But as mentioned, me and Ryan will be back next week to review both championship games, and it is all-star game season, so we will be looking at the Hula Bowl as well, which is going to be good fun. We're going to start talking more about players going forward, which we always love to do. Don't forget the main Lions podcast is back tomorrow. We're going to be talking Minnesota Vikings preview as the Lions go into their last game of the season. Is there anything else you want to mention, Ryan, before we get out of here today, or that everything for this week?
Nope, that about wraps everything up.
It is, and who knows? Yeah, let's bring on the championship games and bring on draft season because we absolutely love it. It's what we're about here. You can find us all over the internet, Roar of the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. You can find us, just type it in. You will see our lovely faces right there. We will see you again tomorrow. Thanks ever so much for joining this evening. It just remains for me to thank Rye, thank Hank, and we shall see you soon. One Pride.